Hello and welcome into the Sporting Pod. Along with Mauricio Ruiz and Tony Allegretti, I'm Cole Pepper. The deed has been done. Today on the pod, Gregg Burhalter out as the head coach of the U.S. men's national team. What comes next and who replaces him? Cupset. Indy 11 takes down Atlanta United in the U.S. Open Cup. How it happened. And the finals are set in the Euros and Copa America. What to expect this weekend. Reminder, we are fed by the Bearded Pig, locally owned and operated with locations in San Marco and Jax Beach. Make sure you swing by the Bearded Pig for great barbecue and great time. There's the pig, who is also bearded.
In the office.
Thank you.
in our office. Also a reminder, we're getting closer and closer to the Premier League coming to Jacksonville with Wolverhampton Wanderers and West Ham United competing for the Stateside Cup on July the 27th. Tickets are on sale now. Also, there's a great opportunity for you. Just go to sportingjax.com if you have kids who are playing soccer and want to take part in a youth clinic. Great deal there. That will take place before the game in the Flex Field, and there will be all kinds of Wolves and West Ham personnel, local coaches as well, to teach some of the finer points of the game to the kids. Mauricio, you'll be on the field there working with that.
Yeah, it'll be a fun event. Be able to get the kids before the game, work with some of the former legends of Wolves and West Ham United, as well as some local coaches. So we're hoping that the community comes out and gets to take advantage of this great opportunity.
You just go to the events tab of sportingjax.com for more information there. And we'll remind you that Copa America, the finals Sunday night at 8, Argentina against Colombia. And we invite you to join us for a watch party at the Island Wing Company Southside Boulevard location starting at 2 o'clock for the Euro finals between Spain and England. That will be Sunday at 3, and you can RSVP at sportingjax.com under the events tab. All right, we got a lot of that business out of the way. A little more business to come still. But, of course, the big news is Gregg Burhalter out as the head coach of the U.S. men's national team. Tony, after a really disappointing performance in Copa America. And if you look back on Burhalter's performance, there were some high points, but the high points were not as high as many would want, and the low points were just too many.
Yeah, it was time. It was Gregg out, and it's kind of funny now because a lot of people that were really wishing for this are now like realizing that the same organization has to make the decision on the next person. So it's a wild time right now, and it's wide open. So really excited to see some new energy and a new figurehead come in.
And let's talk about some of those parameters for this new figurehead. We can say that as of the recording of this podcast, Thursday at 3:15, Jurgen Klopp has reportedly said no already.
We swerved one there.
Well, okay, said the Everton guy.
We did for many different reasons.
I'm just joking.
So,
to be honest, I would be thrilled.
I want to talk about that. He would have been my sexiest pick, for sure. I don't know if he's necessarily the best pick all around, but Mauricio, we've talked about this on the TV show. We've talked about it with Becky Burley on the radio show. I think that hiring Klopp would have been a home run, to use a sports crossover pun, in terms of the next 2 years. Now, would he be the right guy in terms of the competition itself? We can argue that, but his personality, charisma, and track record would have made it an absolute home run in terms of marketing and PR between now and the start of the World Cup in 2026.
Yeah, and don't be fooled. I think that decision will take the PR in consideration, right? I mean, if there's a great coach out there that nobody knows, his or her name, it's not going to work, right? Because it is the U.S. and we hit, to your point, touchdowns and home runs, and it's 4th of July, and we celebrate the biggest, the best. So I would just hope that they didn't make this decision without already having a succession plan, right? Without having those parameters that we really won't know until the decision is made. I don't think that they're going to come out and give us the parameters that they're looking for, but you just hope that as they took this week, right, this really long week after we got eliminated, that they went into the week going, okay, it's not Gregg because he doesn't meet this criteria, but we already have a list and we've already done a little bit of searching to see if there'll be some interest of those people. And I just think, to Tony's point, and it's very rare that I agree with Tony's points, but it's the same people making the decision. And we made the decision on Gregg before. We made the second decision on Gregg, and now it sounds like we made the correct decision, unless they bring in, and it's not to take credit from anyone, but like Jim Curtis, right? Like, he's a great MLS coach, and Chirondolo, like, he's got an European. I just don't know that those are better than Gregg.
Well, everyone is going to say, why did we rehire Gregg if this was the kind of the right fit?
Agree.
If we hired any of those guys. And Mauricio, I've been wanting to talk about this with you because you wear a lot of hats with this club, but this is a lot of what you do is lining up potential candidates to come in for our sporting side, our technical side. And just can you go into just kind of how difficult that can be?
Yeah, it's a lot more difficult when you don't have a North Star of something that you want to attain to, right? Personality, identity, experience, maturity, the ability to be relatable at the same time and drive a hard task, a cultural builder. So it is important. And I imagine the U.S. are doing this, something that we are doing internally. We are creating those criteria that are unique to our environment. They're unique to the city of Jacksonville. They're unique to an expansion club. It's different than hiring a coach, a technical director, sporting director for an expansion club versus a team that already has a culture built in, already has a brand that's known. So that criteria is important. And then how do you kind of trickle down from that criteria? So the U.S. has to be doing the same thing. Like, what is important in this cycle? Is it another good American coach? Is it a good Jurgen Klopp international coach? Do they need to have experience on the international football level or not? Do they need to have had success on the international level or not? Is it an assistant coach good enough, or they need to have sat in the seat of being a head coach? I think those are all criteria that they need to kind of really have a conversation about. And when you create that criteria, then the decision kind of sorts itself out. Then it's about making that final decision, right?
One criteria that I noticed that they're not making it part of the factor is that money is no object. So they're not going to let a big name, good, perfect fit get away because of budgetary reasons, which I think makes a lot of sense with the World Cup coming here in 26. So I really do love that it's wide open like that. It allows us to get, in my opinion, a really top-level international manager. I think, for me, the big key is someone that this team would leave it all on the field for, someone they would die for, which is why I really loved Bielsa early on before he took Uruguay. I don't know who that is. Is it, Patrick Vieira? Is it, somebody that just really, they got to be enchanting.
I think Cole has some names for us.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to start throwing some out. And this is one, actually, Mauricio, that you brought up pretty early on, even before the Burhalter move. You're talking about a proven international coach, and that's the former Germany manager, Jogi Löw, or Low, depending how you want to pronounce it.
Löw. For Americans' sake, he'd be called Love.
Yeah.
He was a guy who, from 2006, took over Germany and had some good results for sure in there.
As long as we're willing to overpass some hygiene kind of issues on the sideline.
That's what you're concerned with.
He's the booger eater.
There is that. But that's a guy who has a name and a pedigree. Gareth Southgate, his name has come up, although obviously getting to the Euro finals. To me,
that's a no. I mean, come on.
I'm just saying names that have come up.
Can we have a buzzer in this?
You can buzz that one out
on this series.
Hervé Renard, who was the French women's manager, and that would be a very interesting.
Well, he was
move.
a Saudi Arabia manager during the World Cup that beat Argentina. That gave that speech. He goes, "Who is Messi? Kick him when he comes around." That's my French accent, by the way.
So those are some names to consider. If you want to look at those who have big club experience and who might be available, obviously Klopp would be at the top of the list. Now he's taking himself off of that. Mauricio Pochettino, former Chelsea manager, do anything for you?
My namesake, yeah.
Obviously.
Aren't that many of us in
only so many Mauricios.
In high-class football, so yeah, we'll take it. Well, people might get confused, so maybe not.
Okay, yeah.
They might be thinking I'm leaving Jacksonville to take the U.S. national. So
You're not. So you're taking yourself out of consideration.
Yeah. Just, I'll turn off my phone for the next couple weeks.
All right, Frank Lampard, another former Chelsea manager.
Not inspiring.
It's a name that soccer fans would know, but his track record internationally.
He should be a king to you, Tony. He kept you up that year.
He did, and I love Super Frank. It's not the. I want these guys to be really to have a coach they'd die for. The next one on Cole's list,
you like this one,
would be one that I think they would go for.
Zinedine Zidane.
Can't argue with him. If he tells you to run backwards, you run backwards.
You do, yeah, or you're getting headbutted.
Right. Well, that's he can relate with these behavioral red cards that we're plagued with. He knows all about those.
Another one that has had some experience with some players on this current U.S. roster, Max Allegri, who has been at Juventus. Had managed Tim Weah and Weston McKennie, so some level of familiarity there, perhaps. But again, these are club managers who most of them not with the same level of experience as you might find in some international managers. Thomas Tuchel, former Bayern Munich manager, is also at one point he was suspected that he might be the next Manchester United skipper, but when Erik ten Hag stayed, that ended that opportunity.
So can I throw two names out there? That's really more. It's not so much about the names, but goes back to the criteria that I'm talking about, and probably the names themselves won't ring too much of a bell. But the Croatia coach, right? It's a kind of an unknown coach. I mean, I have his name up here, Zlatko Dalic. Yeah, he had Luka Modric on his team, right? So that moves a lot, and that's so. Let's make sure we know that. But talk about a manager that took a small nation with limited resources from a footballing standpoint. They have some great footballers, don't get me wrong. They're playing at great levels. But no one in the last two World Cups would have expected Croatia to make it as far to a final first and foremost and into a semifinal and back-to-back in a 4-year cycle. So it's not necessarily the name, but it's him, the criteria. Him, that's the kind of manager. What have you done on the international level successfully? What have you done with a little to make the most out of it? Because that's what we're gonna have to do with the U.S. Right? We keep talking about Cole. Yeah, we have this just generation that are playing our big clubs, and it might be a roster of big clubs in EPL and Serie A. But how many of them are actually performing at those big clubs? When I look at the Croatia team, there's some similarity there. There are 4 or 5 guys that are top level, that are high performers, and there are a lot of French guys on big teams, on small teams, and inside the Croatian league. I mean, Croatia has players playing in the Croatian league, and you couldn't tell me a team in the Croatian league. So a manager like that, Ralf Rangnick,
big Zagreb fan.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. You get someone like Ralf Rangnick. Obviously, didn't do well at the club level with Man U, but look what he just did with Austria. Right, once again, took a club, a nation that we know about 4 players out of it, and then did a lot with them in the Euro. So managers like that know how to take a team, know how to make the most out of the parts that they have. Right now, and I'm a big proponent on building on philosophy, methodology, and having a future plan. That's not what this team needs right now. Not with a 2-year build-up, countdown to the World Cup. You need a manager that can kind of make the most out of this squad and say, you know what, if we need to play 4-4-2 and play direct, that's what we're going to do, because it's going to give us the best chance to win, to make a semifinal in the World Cup. And
I think I know who will be reaching for the buzzer faster on this next one. But another name that has been thrown out there for conversation is Bruce Arena.
No.
That's crazy. Yeah. That's absolutely crazy.
Mauricio. I really like your Croatia guy. He's younger too, isn't he?
I mean, youngish. Yeah.
That reminds me of '94. Our '94 team, which was Bora, which was former Yugoslavia. They've got some good, sort of DNA in the gaffer.
Well, they know how to suffer, and once again, was he successful because he was one of their own? They played for him. He could speak the language well. He could maybe that's the case, right? But you talk about nations that know how to survive and they know how to be the underdog, and if it's not him, but I would hope that they put names like him, where the criteria is not far from it. And now I haven't done the research to know who those guys are, but they're out there.
Is there enough? Sorry, one last question on this topic. Is there enough time to get a coach in, enough time with the players to get a coach in that isn't fluent in English?
I think so, because I think we have a lot of players that speak multiple languages. He would hire a staff that speaks English, and I would suggest that most coaches in the world, besides Bielsa and Tata Martino,
speak a little bit.
They speak enough English to be able to coach a team.
What about like David Moyes? If the team doesn't speak Scottish,
would they understand him?
That might be a. He might need a translator. He might need two translators, like a UK British translator to American English translator. So maybe the price tag will go up there.
might be a more expensive proposition, just logistically speaking. Well, we'll talk more about this on the Sporting JAX report coming up on Wednesday on ABC 25 at noon with encore presentations over the weekend, and also on our radio show, the Sporting JAX Soccer Hour, Mondays at 6 p.m. on 1010 a.m. and 1010xl.com. Also want to remind you that you can become a member of Sporting JAX. Just sign up. It's absolutely free. Go to sportingjax.com to sign up. You get discounts on Sporting JAX official club merchandise, invitations to exclusive insider events, chances to win special prizes and experiences, and while you're there, you can become a season ticket depositor. Just put your deposit down, $25 for the men or the women, $40 for both, and you will have your seat saved for pro soccer returning to Jacksonville. Before we get out of here, I do want to talk about the U.S. Open Cup as well, because, Tony, you got yourself a cup set.
We do.
Indy 11 took down Atlanta United, and the scene was quite something. It was not played at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, where Atlanta United plays their home games. It was instead played at Kennesaw, and a smattering of fans there. It's pretty clear that Atlanta United didn't put much effort into promoting that match as an important match for the club.
Yeah, and that's where their MLS Next Pro team plays. So it's, they kind of view, if you talk about venue as the importance of it, they kind of treat it as that. It's a reserved developmental game, even though they use quite a bit of their top players.
And lost.
So it's always, there's the business of football and then the football business. And I think the business of football there, as far as how they consider that game and how the front office decided to go forward with that game, because their coaching staff certainly put their best foot forward, and Indy was just better than on the day. But certainly the front office of Atlanta United decided that game was not going to be as important to them. They're not going to put the resources behind it.
Another thing too is it's camera placement, because the side that people weren't allowed on the other side, so it was always going to be empty. But you really rarely saw the side where people were, and it was better attended, obviously. And I'll just say, because I was interested in looking at some of the attendances in the past, and Atlanta United had the record. I don't know if they still do, but they had the record for the largest attendance in the Open Cup history with over 40,000. So where's the love?
Yeah, and I think that might have been a semifinal game, if memory serves.
Could have been. It was like 18 or 19.
Yeah. Obviously, we've talked a lot about the way that MLS is dealing with the Open Cup scenario. I will also point out that the games were on Apple TV Plus, so if you wanted to watch, that's how you had to do that. So perhaps is that an entree into a little more consideration for the future now that Apple TV has their piece of it. But the other games, we saw Sacramento Republic falling to the Seattle Sounders, New Mexico United of the USL Championship falling to LAFC, and Sporting Kansas City got through FC Dallas after extra time. So the semifinal matchups for the weekend of August 27th and 28th, you've got Seattle and LAFC, and then you've got Sporting KC and Indy 11. So one USL Championship team remains in the Final Four.
It would be great. And have they come out with the locations for those games yet?
I have not seen that. I just
not announced yet.
All I've seen is the bracket.
Right? Because if Indy 11 is playing that game at home, obviously we know what's going on with Indy 11. They share with their ownership and their stadium build. If they're playing that game at home, you bet they're going to pack that place. They're going to make a great atmosphere. We talked about Sporting KC always being a good USL, US Open Cup. They put a lot of effort into it, and so the Seattle Sounders.
Yeah, for sure. Tony, any thoughts here on what we have? And we'll talk more about it as the end of August approaches. But
I think the Indy story is excellent. I worry about MLS's reaction if Indy makes it in the finals. Like their behavior has been suspect on this tournament, and I think if a USL, a lower league team, makes an incredible run, gets to the final, or even wins it, I think they freak.
But you know what's going to happen, right? And and we're not paid by the MLS or by the USL necessarily, so it's if that happens, and I hope it happens, right? We have some good friends, that are coaching and playing at Indy, so hopefully for them, they will win. This will be the caveat that MLS needs to say, oh, yeah, because we've been considering them, right? They're kind of give them the boost, and whether they do or not on the final end or not, but if Indy 11 makes it, goes, yeah, this is the boost that we needed to kind of validate that they're actually in an MLS city. Because they're gonna play their cards as the favorites.
By the way, I'm just taking a closer look at the fine print here on this bracket that I have in this graphic. Kansas City and Seattle will host. So
top team.
So Indy will be going to Kansas City, and LAFC will be going to Seattle. And those are I've been to games at both of those stadiums. I know, Mauricio, you've been to at least at Seattle.
I've been to both.
Kansas City as well.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, those are great atmospheres.
Yeah.
When Seattle packs it out.
But are they going to play at their home ground?
Well, Kansas City certainly will.
Yeah.
They did this past week against FC Dallas. So there's where else are you going to play? They're not going to Arrowhead, so they'll play it at Children's Mercy Park. And then, good question with Seattle though. Will they play?
I believe they would.
With LAFC, I would think probably so.
How far is KC to Indy?
Not too bad.
It's probably 11 or 12-hour drive.
Ooh,
yeah. There's a lot of space out in the Midwest, boys.
For some reason, I feel like the Midwest, they're all next to each other.
They're not.
They can just kind of hang out.
There is nothing next to anybody in the Midwest.
Okay. If you say so.
Wide open
been.
spaces. I've spent a few minutes there.
Newcastle to Bournemouth.
Maybe Brisbane to Bournemouth in some cases. So, all right, we'll look forward to that. U.S. Open Cup later in August. The finals are September the 25th, so we'll have a U.S. Open Cup dip in August and then again in September. And a lot of big news to come for Sporting JAX as well. When we have some news to share with you of particular import, one of the things we look forward to doing is sort of taking you behind the scenes of what happened and how we got to these big announcements, which we are anticipating coming up here in the remainder of the second half of 2024. So thank you so much for those who have listened. Please share with your soccer fan friends. Subscribe if you have not already, and become a member of Sporting JAX at SportingJax.com. For Mauricio Ruiz and Tony Allegretti, I'm Cole Pepper. Thanks so much for listening to The Sporting Pod.